Have you ever wondered how failure has shaped history? Just think about it. Every great leap forward, every monumental achievement, every epic story of success has, more often than not, a backstory littered with trials, errors, and yes, failures. This concept of failure is not a modern phenomenon. It has been a consistent theme throughout human history. From the ancient civilizations to the present day, failure has played an integral role in shaping the world as we know it. It's intriguing, isn't it? That something so negatively perceived can be so positively transformative. Our journey today is set to traverse through time, highlighting famous failures that have left their mark on history. We'll explore how these missteps, these blunders, these epic failures ultimately led to some of the greatest successes and advancements in history. So, fasten your seatbelts, folks. Join us as we travel back in time to explore the fascinating role of failure in history. Our journey begins in the ancient times, where failures were not merely setbacks but catalysts for change. Let's cast our minds back to one of the most powerful entities that ever graced the earth, the Roman Empire. A civilization that was a beacon of military might, architectural prowess, and cultural richness. Yet, it collapsed, a failure that echoed through the ages. What led to the fall of this great empire? A multitude of factors, really. Economic instability, political corruption, military overspending, and even the invasion of barbarians played their part. But, rather than just marking an end, this failure served as a seismic shift in the world order. The fall of the Roman Empire led to the fragmentation of Western Europe into several small kingdoms. This brought about the Middle Ages, a period of remarkable transformation. Society was reshaped, cultures evolved, and the seeds of national identities were sown. In the East, the story was different. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, thrived. It became a melting pot of various cultures, bridging the gap between the East and the West, and preserving the heritage of ancient Greece and Rome. It was the failure of the Western Roman Empire that allowed Byzantium to flourish, creating a unique blend of cultures that still impacts our world today. In the ancient times, failure was a catalyst, a trigger that set off a chain reaction of changes. It was the end of an era, but also the beginning of a new one, a period of growth, change, and evolution. It was a time when lessons were learned, and the foundations of the future were laid. These ancient failures were not ends, but new beginnings, setting the stage for progress. The fall of the Roman Empire, despite its devastating impact, set the wheels in motion for the development of European civilization. It was a failure, yes, but a failure that shaped the course of history, proving that even in downfall, there is the promise of an ascent. As we move into the Renaissance, we witness an era of exploration and innovation fueled by both success and failure. The air was thick with creativity. The spirit was high with ambition. Yet this was not an era of seamless victories. It was a time that embraced the beauty of trial and error, where the most brilliant minds were not afraid to stumble and fall. Take, for instance, the renowned Leonardo da Vinci, an icon of the Renaissance. He was a painter, a sculptor, an architect, and an engineer. But did you know that he was also a master of unfinished projects? Yes, the man who gave us the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper had a plethora of works he never completed. Yet these unfinished projects were not in vain. Each attempt, each failure, was a lesson learned, a step closer to perfection. His notebooks were filled with sketches, ideas, and inventions that were way ahead of his time. These included designs for a flying machine, a diving suit, even a mechanical knight. Many of these projects were deemed failures during his lifetime, but they paved the way for advancements in art and science that we still benefit from today. Failure for Leonardo was not a dead end. It was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to innovate. He once said, "An artist's studio should be a small space because small rooms discipline the mind and large ones distract it." This could be seen as a metaphor for his approach to failure. In the small space of an unsuccessful project, he found the discipline to refine his work, to push the boundaries of what was possible. Leonardo's story is just one of many from the Renaissance. It was an era marked by a willingness to experiment, to take risks, and yes, to fail. But each failure brought with it new knowledge, new insights, and new paths to explore. So let's remember, in the grand tapestry of history, it's often the threads of failure that weave the most intricate patterns. In the Renaissance, failure was not an obstacle, but a stepping stone to greater understanding. Opening. The Industrial Revolution, a time of rapid development, was not without its share of failures. As the world surged forward, embracing the new and the novel, It was inevitable that there would be some missteps along the way. The Industrial Revolution was a time of trial and error, of experimentation and exploration. And yes, there were failures, but these failures played a crucial role in fueling progress. One of the most significant examples is the initial failures of the steam engine. Thomas Newcomen was the first to successfully use steam to power an engine in 1712, but his design was far from perfect. It was inefficient, consumed a large amount of coal, and was not practical for many applications. Yet, it was a failure that held promise. Newcomen's design was the stepping stone for James Watt, who in the mid-18th century made alterations that vastly improved the efficiency of the steam engine. Watt's engine was no overnight success either. It took years of failed attempts, modifications, and perseverance. But eventually, his version of the steam engine transformed transportation, powered factories, and became a central pillar of the Industrial Revolution. Then there was the case of Samuel Morse and the telegraph. The initial version of the telegraph was a massive failure. It was unreliable, complicated, and expensive. But Morse didn't give up. He took the shortcomings of his initial design and used them as a springboard to develop a simpler, more reliable system. The result was the Morse code system, which revolutionized long-distance communication. These examples illustrate how failures during the Industrial Revolution were not dead ends. Instead, they were stepping stones, each one a lesson that guided inventors and innovators toward improved designs and ideas. They were opportunities for growth and improvement, catalysts for change and progress. So let's not view the failures of the Industrial Revolution as mere setbacks. Rather, let's see them as they truly were: the sparks that ignited the flame of progress, the seeds that grew into the mighty tree of industrial advancement. Closing. In the Industrial Revolution, failures were the sparks that ignited progress. As we step into the 20th century, we see failures that, in many ways, shaped the world we live in today. This era bore witness to an array of individuals who, despite their initial setbacks, eventually blossomed into icons of success. Their stories serve as powerful reminders that failure, while often painful, can be a springboard to greatness. Let's take Walt Disney, a name synonymous with imagination and creativity. But his journey wasn't all fairy tales and magic. Before the creation of Mickey Mouse, Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. His first animation company went bankrupt. Yet he held on to his dreams, persevered, and eventually created a world of enchantment that continues to captivate hearts across the globe. Then there's Steve Jobs, a man who revolutionized technology and the way we interact with the digital world. But his road to success was far from smooth. Jobs was famously ousted from Apple, the very company he co-founded. He described this period as a public humiliation, yet also as a liberating experience that led him to explore new ventures and ideas. He returned to Apple years later, leading it to unprecedented heights with products like the iPhone and iPad. These are just two examples of how failure can be a stepping stone to success. There are countless more. From Thomas Edison, who had thousands of unsuccessful attempts before inventing the light bulb, to J.K. Rowling, who faced numerous rejections before Harry Potter became a worldwide phenomenon. The list goes on. Each of these individuals experienced failure, but they didn't let it define them. Instead, they used it as fuel to drive them forward, to learn, to grow, to innovate. They transformed their failures into stepping stones, paving their way to success. These 20th century failures remind us that often, the path to success is paved with trials and setbacks. But remember, it's not the failure that counts, it's how you respond to it. Because sometimes, it's through facing the toughest challenges and enduring the most devastating failures that we find our true potential and achieve our greatest successes. As we conclude our journey through history, we are reminded of the critical role failure plays in the path to success. This trip has shown us that failure is not a sign of defeat, but a stepping stone towards triumph. From the ancient civilizations to the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and the 20th century, we've seen time and again that it is through failures that we make progress. These stories of historical failures, which we might initially perceive as setbacks, are indeed the catalysts for some of the world's most groundbreaking successes. They serve as potent reminders that it is through the act of falling and rising again that we learn, grow, and ultimately succeed. In the grand narrative of history, Failure and success are two sides of the same coin. So, as we traverse our own paths, let us not fear failure. Remember, it's not about avoiding failure, but learning, growing, and persevering through it. After all, the history of failure is, in many ways, the history of success.